Welcome to today's Software AG webcast titled Rehosting Mainframe Applications to Preserve Investments. Today's webcast will be presented by Bob Jeffcott, Principal Systems Engineer at Software AG. As we move through today's presentation, I invite you to submit any questions that you may have via the Q&A box, which is located in the top right corner of your webcast dashboard. We will address your questions at the end of today's program. In the event that we're not able to answer your question, your submission will be recorded, and today's presenter will be back in touch with you as soon as possible. Today's presentation is being recorded. This program recording will be made available to you in an email that will be sent to you later this evening. Additionally, this webcast will be posted to the Adabas Natural playlist on the Software AG YouTube channel. Before I turn today's presentation over to Bob, I would like to briefly introduce you to Software AG. Software AG helps companies with their digital transformation. With Software AG's digital business platform, companies can better interact with their customers and bring them on new digital journeys, promote unique value propositions, and create new business opportunities. In the Internet of Things market, Software AG enables enterprises to integrate, connect, and manage IoT components, as well as analyze data and predict future events based on artificial intelligence. The digital business platform is built on decades of uncompromising software development, IT experience, and technological leadership. Software AG has more than 4,500 employees, is active in 70 countries, and had revenues of €879 million in 2017. It is now my pleasure to welcome Bob Jeffcott.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate it. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Today, we're going to be covering rehosting, and we're really going to address it in three different areas. First is why rehost? Why move from the mainframe to what we term LUW. That is today's terminology for the Linux, UNIX, Windows world. And then we are going to say, what is rehosting? What is the actual components of it? What does it involve as far as the new, how the old platform translates into the new platform? And then lastly, what is the process? How do you go about migrating from a mainframe application into a new Linux, Unix, Windows world? And then we have time for questions and answers after that. Without that, let's start talking about why rehosting. One of the goals of why you would want to rehost is to preserve the existing capabilities. The applications that you have today in today's Adabas Natural world are unique to your organization. They are the differentiators in the business world. They are the delivery of services to the citizens in the state and local and federal government worlds. Typically, we see with our customers, one of the goals is to reduce costs. Mainframes can be expensive. And then lastly, there are a lot of people in the mainframe world that are of retirement age. So they want to be able to have resources to be able to run their ongoing operations, and more of those are leaning to the LUW world. Just more people graduating out of college are being trained in that, less are being trained in the mainframe world. But some of the challenges of rehosting is understanding the costs, the risks, and what is exactly the roadmap for that. And when we talk about cost, it's not just the simple cost of migration, it's not just the simple cost of the new platform, but also the cost of personnel, time, effort, those kinds of things. What are the major risks? What are we running into as possible challenges, possible showstoppers? We want to ensure the ongoing quality of the operation. What they had today, they will have it at least a minimum of that in the new platform. And also the impact to users. Am I going to have to go through new training? Are they going to have to understand new capabilities, new technologies, those kinds of things? So really, you know, the options of addressing all that is to create that business plan, to give you that roadmap to say, here are the challenges, here are the benefits, And then do we want to move everything? All the applications? Do we want to leave some things on the mainframe and just move the Adabas Natural applications and the associated JCL and other things that it might touch, the LUW world? So really, again, those are kind of the goals, the challenges, and then what do I do as far as my options moving forward with that? One of the primary goals that we look at when we talk about rehosting is we call it the lift and shift. So it is a like-for-like transformation. So I take what I have in my existing world and I move it to a new platform that gives me the capability of having a lower total cost of ownership, and it optimizes operations. It gives me then the ability from that point to be able to modernize. So that's our approach to reduce risk is to lift and shift, and then to look at modernization. That modernization can come in a DevOps environment. It can talk about new ways of connectivity, new ways of either user interfaces, integration, data visualization, data analytics, those kinds of things. And then last, we give the ability to do transformation of your application. So we allow it, you can then take the next step to do integration, whether it be to the Internet of Things, publish out APIs, to integrate with big data for further analysis, and then potentially whether connect to the cloud or actually move that natural Adabas application to the cloud. That's one of the benefits that you're going to see from the moving to an LUW platform. Allows you to innovate while reducing risk. And let's talk a little bit here about that risk. Some customers are opting to potentially look at their legacy applications, their traditional applications, and maybe doing a rip and replace to a COTS package to one of the ERPs. We're seeing that customers are choosing to do that less and less because, again, as we had mentioned, the applications you have today are your differentiators. They are what make you more competitive, that allow you to do business as you see fit rather than trying to fit your business into a computer system. I have to admit it's one of my pet peeves that drives me crazy when I deal with a customer service person and they say, well, yes, what you want makes sense, but our system will not allow us to do that. Typically, your systems have been around a very long time. They are catered to your specific business needs. So that migration and modernization and transformation is a less risky way to modernize the system to fulfill your business needs. And just a little bit of highlights with that, the ability to preserve your existing application and capabilities while ensuring that the people that are going to be maintaining it have the same skill sets as far as the Adabas Natural folks go, and to be able, from a systems operation, to be able to leverage the Linux, Unix, Windows expertise that's out there. One of the things that we find as people move from the mainframe to the LUW platform is that their performance is either the same or better, and in the batch world, it is significantly better. The performance that we see is usually much faster and quicker in the LUW world. Also, that there are more capabilities in that LUW world as far as integration goes, adapters, capabilities to do things like PDFs, just the ability for Natural to move out of Natural into the Unix, Linux operating systems, and then move seamlessly back into Natural. The other thing is that you want to have a non-disruptive transition. So while this process is going on, while the process is moving from that mainframe platform to an LUW platform, you'll still be able to continue to modernize your system, change your system, meet whatever business needs, regulatory rules that are set up. You can continue to do ongoing development. Again, because we are doing a lift and shift, the user experience is going to stay the same. So you're not going to have to go through training. You're not going to have to retrain people on how they do their jobs. They're going to have a very similar look and feel and familiarity. So again, that safe way of migrating. So again, just in reviewing, we do that lift and shift approach. It limits risk. It limits impact. During the rehosting, one of the benefits is it's going to be an IT savings cost. We've done this with our customers over 100 times. And while we do say Linux, Unix, Windows, and we do have customers running on all three of those platforms and all flavors within the Linux and Unix world, we are starting to see with our customers that Linux and Linux in a VM world is on Intel is becoming the #1 choice. We've even had customers that have moved from Unix, from the Sun Solaris world, from the HP UX world into the Linux world. They seem to have a preference of hardware and OS. And again, we have both flavors of both of the most popular flavors of Linux, Red Hat, and SUSE, a solid customer base on both of those. With this new platform, one of the things that has been introduced this year with Software AG is the idea of containerization with Adabas Natural. I think for some of you all had been at some of our recent users groups where we were actually able to deploy a new container for the development world through the Alexa app. And so it's just embracing that new technology that's out there, the ability to spin up containers, whether those containers be development environment containers, whether they be deployed microservices versions of your Adabas Natural applications out there in production. And again, the ability to move your Adabas Natural applications to the cloud as well. With just, again, to reiterate 3 points, one of the reasons that this is a low risk, fairly quick migration process is the fact that the Adabas Natural technology is portable. The same Natural, the same Adabas that you are used to on the mainframe runs on the Linux, Unix, Windows world as well, with some minor differences. The IED is a little bit different, but now with Natural 1, even that's going to be the same. There's minimal changes to the application. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit more in depth is what things we consider as we are actually moving that. We've done this methodology. We work with our customers from an assessment all the way through project planning and delivery of services if necessary, if that's a requirement. And again, there have been customers running for 20+ years on this platform and 100+ projects that have been successful. Now let's turn a little bit more about, since we've talked about why we want to rehost the application, let's talk a little bit more about what actually is rehosting. What is that moving of the natural Adabas applications from the mainframe into the LUW platform? Again, the technology from a natural Adabas perspective is the same on both the mainframe and the LUW. There are options for COBOL DB2 because we know not everyone has just Adabas Natural, that they have other things, and we'll talk about all of those different things in a little bit later down in the presentation. But there are capabilities for COBOL DB2 to run in the LUW platform. The major difference is the platform itself. Moving from that mainframe to the LUW platform. One of the big cost savings is just the cost of the platform itself. Typically, you're running on a much smaller machine at a much reduced cost. And then some of the other technologies of software AG, like NtireX, like web methods, work seamlessly with both. It's one of the simplest part of a migration is redeploying your NtireX components from the mainframe onto the LUW platform. And so what really is a rehosting project? And the definition of that is a mainframe to Linux, Unix, Windows rehosting project includes all of the work that needs to be done for the existing customer's application to perform the exact same way it did on the mainframe into the target platform. That includes all the data, all the code, all the procedures, all the infrastructure and software components in the target platform. So again, it is really that, if take nothing else from this webinar, it is that lift and shift. Take the application as defined, or applications as defined in this project, and move those and all of the components, all of the data, all of the code into that new Linux platform. From a Adabas Natural perspective, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. From the platform perspective, again, a variety of choices. We do move from ZOS, from BSE, BS2000s, any of those platforms, and again, into whatever the preference of your platform is, whether it be Linux, Unix, or Windows. The applications run the same, so the user interface, the experience would be the exact same. The screens that they're used to seeing, the menu structures that they go through. Log on is typically a little bit different. There's only minimal change to the natural code, and the primary change that you're going to see is the difference between the EBCDIC and ASCII character sets. So you're going to see, changes potentially required if you're doing a search. Something of A through 999 might have to now be changed to 1 through ZZZ. But typically at our customer base, we see only about maybe even 10% of the code would have to even be evaluated, with less than 1% of that code actually being changed. And again, one of the benefits of that minimal impact is that you can continue while this project is going on to be able to continue to change and adapt your applications to the current business needs. But I do want to take now some time to actually go through all of the architecture. So the user interface, both terminal emulation, the difference is that you're moving from a 3270 emulation into the VT220 terminal emulation. For those of you guys that do have terminal emulators, there may be some licensing changes that you might need to make, or you may want to use a different terminal emulator. There are several open source terminal emulators for the LUW world. For middleware, NtireX and MQ series run on both platforms. Again, the biggest change is that your definition of your NtireX brokers are going to change from, the underlying IP address. Hopefully none of you guys are actually using that to have you're not actually using the IP address itself to define the brokers, but you're using some logical name. So ETB001, just the underlying definition would change for that. From code development, and I just realized I did make a mistake on this slide, that the natural COBOL and PL1 that run on the mainframe, natural runs on LUW. There are COBOL and PL1 emulators, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later, so that you can run your native COBOL PL1 on the LUW platform. The databases itself, Adabas, DB2, all fully available. One of the challenges that you'll run into, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, is that vSAM is not really available. There are some vSAM replacements, but depending upon how you're utilizing them, those may actually those may be applicable, but typically most of our customers use both COBOL and natural to access vSAM, so that limits it to an Adabas environment. Development tools, typically things like Predict, Natural Security, those things are the same. As we are moving to Natural 1 now for both mainframe and Linux, that will be the development platform for both of them. For batch and job scheduling, and really this is going to be one of the biggest areas you're going to deal with. JCL does not run on the mainframe, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more. But we do have alternative solutions for those. We'll talk about those in a little bit more detail down the road. Again, the other thing is that the operating systems obviously will change. Again, we do have a lot more availability of resources on the LUW world than you might have on the mainframe world moving forward. And I know that that's a concern with some of our customers' management today. Let's just skip a couple. Oh, sorry. So let's talk a little bit more about the challenges. We've talked about how easy it is for Adabas and Natural to move on the, from one platform to another. But let's talk about what we see as the biggest challenges in our customers that have done that migration. So as we talked about, COBOL and PL1 doesn't run natively on LUW. However, there are versions available for both COBOL and PL1, such as Microfocus COBOL. Microfocus has a PL1 emulator. New COBOL has a COBOL emulator. Iron Springs has a PL1 emulator. And there are other options out there as well. I just kind of listed the most popular. We talked a little bit about vSAM. It's not necessarily available on LUW. There are ISAM-like alternatives for it. So if you're running a COBOL vSAM solution natively, we can help migrate that. But if you're running like a natural vSAM, that's going to be more Adabas that we're going to have to migrate to. But because of the nature of natural vSAM that you're using DDMs, that migration is fairly simple. And actually will eventually give you more capabilities and more ease of use because now your backups are being done with as part of the Adabas backup. Assembler typically does not, Assembler does not run an LUW. So those things that you're using would have to be rewritten. Typically, though, a lot of our customers are using assembler modules to do security or to do some interfacing with the operating system itself. So oftentimes, those aren't required. What's happening is our customers then are able to leverage the ability of Natural to invoke the OS scripting or execution of the native LUW functionality right from the Natural application, so that assembler is not required. GDGs are not available in the LUW world, and I'm sure we all use GDGs. And I realized I have a typo here. I apologize. Typically what we do is we do date-driven solutions with that. So the files, instead of a version, have a date attached to them. One of our capabilities that we're going to talk about a little bit more here in a few slides handles this out of the box, and also alternative solutions handle that GDG conversion. So it doesn't natively exist, but the replacement of it is not very difficult. So I'm going to hit the two most, while I don't think largest challenges, but the two that I think are the hardest to uncover. We want to talk about packed and binary data inside alpha fields, so that while the biggest difference between is EBCDIC to ASCII translation, and FTPing, all those kinds of things handle that natively. But what happens, especially for applications that have been around a long time, we may have hidden packed or binary data inside an alpha field. So what that is in the database world, we've defined a field as alpha 10, but we've redefined that alpha field as binary 4, packed 4, and alpha 2 to scrunch together data. You're not going to be able to seamlessly migrate that data from the mainframe world to the Linux world. And the same holds true of flat files. And when we're talking about flat files, we aren't talking about temporary, I have a 3-step batch job where I write out work file from reading a natural, having a natural program read database, write out work file, sort the work file, then read it back into another natural program. What I'm talking about are those permanent flat files, those flat files that we reuse, that are used for end-of-month processing, end-of-quarter processing, those kinds of things. So those are two areas. If you have flat files with packed or binary data hidden in them, or if you have database files that have packed or binary data hidden within the alpha fields, what you have to do is write natural programs to export and import that data. So you'd write the export on the mainframe side and write the import on the LUW side. Again, not really hard to do, but could be time consuming. But again, you'd be able to leverage your natural skill sets for that. The second area, and sometimes can relate to that, is the production cutover time frame. When we actually do a live production cutover, what you're going to do is shut down your mainframe database. You're going to do a unload of that database. You're going to FTP those files over to your new platform, and you're going to do a compress and load into that new platform. Typically, that only takes, even with the largest databases that we have out there, typically that it does only take a few hours. But we do have customers where the outage is of a few hours is unacceptable. I said, no, we can't live with a 4-hour, 6-hour outage. In those cases, there is a backup and restore product that would automatically do that EBCDIC to ASCII translation. So that capability is out there, but again, that's one of the things that you have to consider is how long can I actually be out to cut over to my new platform. So those are really the biggest challenges that we see. The one I did not really touch on is the JCL. So obviously JCL does not run on in the LUW world. It uses scripts instead. So if I want to execute something, I just execute it with a script. So what we typically do is we have partnered with a company called Cronus. Cronus is based in South Africa. They've worked with us on dozens and dozens of rehosting projects. And they have a suite of products called ESP. What those products do are replace that batch JCL world. And I did sneak a peek at the Q&A and did see that there was a question of does NAT-RJE exist in the LUW world, and it does not. So that is one of the other areas that this is meant to address. So the ESP products were designed to offer a replacement for the mainframe JCL's utilities schedulers. It adds additional functionality, such as the ability to wrap reports as PDF and email those off or deliver them through SMF. Its goal really, though, is to maintain the mainframe-like batch environment and online submittals of that and the online management of your batch environments. So we cater for JCL equivalents and the natural RJE. So you have those abilities. Additionally, it mimics a lot of the existing JCL references, such as IBGeners and IDCAMs, those kinds of things. So you don't have to rewrite any of that JCL. Take a little bit closer look at their components. So their main tool for that JCL conversion is ESP Batch. It is the Batch Control Manager. It has a natural online user interface. It has an associated automatic batch scheduler called ESP Auto. It integrates with the ESP utilities, so it does those translations of the, like we spoke, the IBGeners, the IDCAMs, other utilities that you typically see in the JCL world. It also integrates with third-party softwares, whether it be sort utilities, whether it be print spoolers, and a whole host of printing capabilities with that. And again, it also handles the ability to do the NAT-RJE. It also has the ability to create new jobs from an online menu, so that while it addresses your existing environment, you can also generate new jobs just through an online menu, so you don't have to ever go back to the JCL. The other component that they have is ESP Control, and that replaces the PACs and the N2Os of the world, because those do not exist on the LUW environment. So you allow that natural life cycle management. It works hand in hand with a DevOps environment. So one of the capabilities in this new world that we touched on briefly earlier was the ability to do DevOps, to do that continuous implementation, that continuous testing, and ESP Control works really well with that. So when we talked a little bit about, what is migration? What does it consist of? Let's talk about what is that process. The first thing you really have to ask are those key questions that your management's going to ask you, that the people that are going to be, getting behind this effort, the risks of such a project. And we've talked about that lift and shift to reduce the risk. We've talked about business continuity, excuse me. And one of the other things that we have not touched on is how much effort would be required from the organization, both from the user community, from your IT group, and then what is the ROI? And that ROI is not only the current cost savings, but the ongoing cost savings and the ongoing ability to modernize and to adjust to the continuing business requirements. So with that, let's talk about how we do this. How do you get started? And really, we take a four-prong approach to this, and we work with each of our customers. We recommend that all customers that are interested in this start off with our Rehosting questionnaire. It's a questionnaire that we provide you. Our technical groups, the SEs of the world, will work with you guys if you want to help you fill this out. But it is really a description of your environment, a description of your goals, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in detail. The next thing that we can do and this isn't necessarily for everyone, but our GCS can come in and do an assessment to deliver a more in-depth look at your application and deliver a true assessment along with project cost, timeline, the risks associated with it. And then we can work with you guys at any level to actually help you. Some of our customers have asked for a turnkey solution. Some of our customers have said, no, we just want some technical guidance or anything in between. And then lastly, go live support. And that go live support isn't just support as you go live, but it's also the training that goes along with the new environment. It is any additional support that you need afterwards, maybe to do the enhancements, the modernization, those kinds of things. So let's talk about those really briefly in a little bit more detail. As I said, we can deliver a questionnaire. We can help you with that. From that point, we would possibly, based upon that, ask for more information. We can come on site and do a discovery to give you to better understand your environment. And from that, we deliver out an assessment or a rehosting report, much like the health checks that you may have seen. It includes a level of estimate of efforts, the biggest challenges that you might have, and then recommended next steps. So that is all complimentary, as part of your ongoing support. So we can do that. From that, we can actually bring our GCS folks on board, and that is a paid assessment. And what they do is they examine your overall application. They do a detailed inventory of the applications, the code, the data sources, all the interfaces. They interview stakeholders for what critical points there are, and then they deliver a project plan, including risk management, what the business case is, what the ROI. They give you a detailed project roadmap that you can take, and you can take from this assessment and either choose then to do yourself. You can do it. You can have Software AG GCS services do it, or a mix of the two. And regardless of who does it, these are all the steps that go through with this. And I want to talk about one in particular. Here is the perform unit test. We can do that. You can do that. But the one thing that is going to be solely your responsibility is the application level testing. Whether you hire Software AG or whether your programmers do it, they can perform the test to say, yes, this particular natural program works, doesn't blow up, data's returned. However, the testing of the overall application really has to be in the hands of the customer. They're the ones that know, are our results correctly? They are the ones that have the knowledge to understand that going from step A to step Z has to be done in a specific order and has to be tested. So that I think is one of the things that are a bit of the challenges that maybe aren't anticipated. And again, then post-production support, just the ability to ensure that your staff is educated, see the training options that are available, those kinds of things. We have done a lot of these, and again, with varying degrees of interaction with Software AG and customer. Some of them have been turnkey, some of them have been with the customer doing a variety, majority of the work. And I wanted to highlight one of our customers who also has a recorded webinar out there. It is ABX. They moved a couple of years ago. And the one thing I did want to show from this is the old and the new. So that was their old mainframe, and that is their new LUW platform in one picture. That was their old tape system, and that was their new storage system. So again, just the idea of that modernization. And I did see that we had a lot of questions, so I did want to just point out that there's fact sheets, there's white papers, there's Prime Services packages out there. There's a couple different webinars out there, as well as some other information, so we can make that available. But with that, Will, I'm going to turn it back to you because I did notice there were a lot of questions. So I wanted to save some time.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, let's get right to number one. Do you have a white paper write-up of this lift and shift process?
We do. It is on our website. It is downloadable, and it's titled While Moving Off of the Mainframe, and we can provide links for that. There's also a platform rehosting fact sheet. And we can make sure if they want, we can get the links for those.
Okay, so that is perfect. So the person that posed that question, if you just send your email through the chat box, we will get those links to you later today. Again, this is a good time to submit your questions if you haven't done them yet. The next question for you, Bob. We are using not only Natural Adabas, but also Natural for DB2 on our ZOS. Is this available on LUW?
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, one of my first major projects that I worked with was moving a Natural DB2 application off of the mainframe onto the LUW platform. That particular customer chose to go to Oracle rather than going to DB2, but Natural, while it is a different product name, we don't call it Natural for DB2. It's Natural in conjunction with Entire Access, which gives you the ability to talk from Natural to any RDBMS database. So that does exist, yes.
For unload load data, is it at files level? If so, do we have to release create inverted lists for the descriptors?
It is at the file level, but no, you don't have to do anything other than a standard unload, and on the new side, the compress and load. So yes, it is that utility, but no additional work has to be done.
How long does a rehosting project usually take?
It's a great question. One of our customers was looking at, well, how many years would this take? And we said, well, actually, it would be how many weeks would it take? It does depend. It is part of that assessment to give you a precise. It typically runs in the months. If it is solely Adabas Natural, it is certainly shorter than if some of those challenges that you looked at, where you might have to rewrite some things to deal with VSAM, to deal with large amounts of assembler. But typically in the months range.
How do I sign up for a rehosting assessment?
Sure. If you would reach out to either your systems engineer or your account executive, we are happy to start that process. And again, as I'd mentioned, the first component of that process is that questionnaire. So we would get you that questionnaire. Once you fill that out, it would be reviewed by our GCS and our SE group, our technical group, and there might be follow-up questions, maybe an on-site visit, and then we would determine next steps then.
What about any non-Adabas and Natural applications? Can they be migrated?
Sure. And again, as we touched on, we had customers with COBOL, with PL1, that those can be migrated in some choices. In some cases, the customer made the choice of move those to those emulator versions, whether it be a Micro Focus or whether it be an Iron environment. Sometimes they have chosen, because it was such a small footprint, they chose to rewrite those in Natural, to take that opportunity to shrink their footprint even smaller into one standard language.
Is the skill set for ANN on Linux very different than the mainframe?
No, it's not. From a natural programmer developer point of view, it really isn't. You get some expanded capabilities in the Linux world, but for your day-to-day development, not at all. In the database world, it's a little bit different. AOS does not exist. However, the database manager gives you those same capabilities, so it's a web interface, actually. A lot of our database DBAs have batch processes to do a lot of their things. While those don't exist, obviously, either through ESP batch or through scripts, you can run those same utilities. So we typically, the learning curve for your database staff has been pretty minimal. I think some of our customers would attest to that. They've taken more novice database people and turned them into the database DBAs. And I think that the ongoing care and feeding of it is simpler.
Can I talk to other customers about their rehosting projects?
Absolutely. We do have references, and we would be happy to set up one-on-one calls with those customers that would share their experiences, both the good and the bad, and highlight some of the things that would assist in a rehosting.
Okay, great. That is all the questions that we have had up to this point. If anybody still does have a question, you can submit it into the Q&A box, and we will have Bob get back to you. But other than that, Bob, thank you very much for your time and for a very informative presentation today. Our program has now ended. Enjoy the rest of your day.